awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ayalami ilondoloze
here. How about this? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? You mean all of that went without any sound? What a dilemma. My sincerest apology. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Let me know. Let me know if you can hear me. Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Wonderful. Yes. All right. Good night and welcome, everyone. Sorry for the lack of sound earlier on. I'm glad you can hear me now. Good night, Miss Jasmine. Good night. Who am I missing here? Lots of persons on so far. I'm seeing Chris B. I'm seeing Leo Lord. I'm seeing Lentworth Duffus. I'm seeing Lion Rule the Jungle. I'm seeing Dorrell Elliott. I'm seeing JMH. I'm seeing Sonia Mignot. I'm seeing Liddy Williams. Welcome to class, everybody. Glad that you can make it. I'm seeing Nezook Komodo. Welcome. I'm seeing Donovan Davis. Welcome to class. Glad to have you on tonight. I am seeing Chat Truth Vibes. Welcome. Good to see you on. Who else am I seeing here? Lots of persons on tonight. Good to have you on. So as I was saying, when my mic was off, I was saying welcome and happy Kwanzaa. Welcome to day 3 of Kwanzaa. As you know, Kwanzaa started on the 26th of December and runs all the way through to January 1. You will recall that on the first day of Kwanzaa, we talked about unity, where we learned to focus first and foremost on securing our individual liberty. And this is key. If you don't have individual liberty, nothing else matters. So the focus of the African here in Jamaica, the African in America, the African in Canada, UK, the African in Europe, the African in Africa, the African in Asia, our first and primary uniting objective is to secure freedom, is to secure our individual liberty, because without individual liberty, nothing else matters. If you're not free, then nothing else no matter. Okay? On day 2, we learned about individual liberty in more detail. Now, you know, in the original Kwanzaa, day 2 is self-determination. But the UIC makes it very clear that day 2 is about individual liberty, because without individual liberty, you cannot self-determine. You have no self-governance. So on day 2, we learned the importance of individual liberty, where we learned that without this, we cannot achieve any of our other objectives or be a strong and effective collective. So nothing is wrong with collective, but before you have a collective, you have to protect the individual right. The individual must have the freedom to join the collective or to leave the collective, to join without force and to leave without force. Okay? So we learned yesterday that the word individualism, while it may have a bad connotation, is actually not bad. We must secure the rights of the individual in order to have an effective collective. And then that collective now must guard against dictatorship and totalitarianism. And the only way to effectively guard against dictatorship and totalitarianism is by enshrining the rights and freedoms of the individual in a proper constitution. Right now, what we have in Jamaica is a fake constitution. Maybe not fake, it is just a bad constitution. It is a constitution which was written by those who abducted us, those who raped us, those who robbed us. Then they turn around and write a constitution for us. Impossible, wrong, unforgivable. And 2 gangs have kept that constitution in place so that today, when it served their interests, they are able to use that bad constitution to violate our individual rights, our individual liberty, the the right to life, liberty, and property includes our body. Nobody has the right to violate your body. My body, my choice. So your mind, your body, your property, you must be free to enjoy those as you see fit, provided you're not using the opportunity to violate the rights of any other persons. And so today we are now going to move into day 3 of the Kwanzaa principle. Yep. So again, please like, share, and comment. And happy Kwanzaa as we now move into discussing the principle of personal responsibility, the day 3 principle. Now, personal responsibility in the original Kwanzaa documentation, it's not called personal responsibility. It's called collective work and responsibility. But you know, the UIC, we always want to make things very clear. So what is collective work and responsibility? We want to pin it down to the fundamental, that first and foremost, each of us working in this collective, working in this team, working on this group, working on this unified objective, each of us must take personal responsibility for our own actions. We must take personal responsibility for our role in getting things done. So, day 3, personal responsibility is one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa that we cannot afford to overlook. We cannot afford to mess up on this principle. It is the opposite of the victim mindset, which keeps us trapped in a doom loop of blaming others for all of our problems. I have often heard many persons talking about slavery and talking about racism. I have lived in North America and I've seen where the way we talk about slavery and the way we talk about racism and the way we talk about imperialism actually cripples the minds of our people. We become so fixated on the wrongs that were done to us that it becomes a crutch and an excuse to fail and not achieve our maximum potential. We allow our past to continue to dominate our present, and we draw from our past only the bad things and not the good things. In fact, it is the goal of our colonial masters. It is the goal of those who want to continue to colonize us for us to have a victim mindset. They want us to every day feel like victims and not take personal responsibility for pulling ourselves up. And so today, our discussion is about throwing off that victim mindset and becoming powerful individuals so that we can have a powerful collective, so that we can respond to all of the attacks, whether the attacks come in the form of mandates, in the form of SOEs, in the form of inflation, whatever the attacks are, we have to learn how to throw them off, how to fight back, and how to take charge of our lives, our community, and rescue our people. And so tonight we're going to dig into that. There's going to be a lot of distractions, all kind of stuff coming our way, all kind of stuff. Like every day there will be an announcement from the Prime Minister, from the opposition, from the media, all kinds of distraction. Did you see that the Gleaner yesterday started talking about Kwanzaa? As soon as we start to do something, they jump on it. Watch out, next year you're going to see the Prime Minister and his wife start to celebrate Kwanzaa. I don't know if you notice, him start to wear blue suits now, lots of blue suits and red tie, because that's what I wear a lot of the times. And his wife is now wearing red dress. So it's all about, they want to make sure that they capture your minds and keep you in the colonial mindset. So they're going to try to manipulate everything we do and try to take ownership of it and try to dilute the influence of the UIC so that we can just settle back down and continue to allow the system that we're in to continue to survive and to thrive at the expense of our people. So I want you to stay very focused tonight and listen carefully to what we're going to be talking about here. It is true that the actions of others affects us, but we are even more affected by how we respond to the challenges we face. Yeah? We can determine what and how to think. We can determine what and when to eat. We can determine what and when to drink. We can determine where and when to go. We can determine what to do with our time and who to spend it with. The fact that we can make these choices for ourselves still means that we can influence our outcomes significantly, even within a system of bad governance. And I have personal experience with this. In fact, it is an unchallenged truth that we become what we think. Our thinking guides all of our actions and shapes our attitude as well as our character. And our character determines the people and the circumstances that we attract to ourselves and the outcomes in our lives. And so it's very important that we realize the power of the way we think. It's very important that we analyze what we think, that we question our thought processes, because how we think and what we think about the most shapes us. Now, most of you know that Jamaica suffers from crab in a barrel mentality. We suffer from bad mind. We suffer from not being able to work well together to achieve anything. And so tonight's discussion about personal responsibility and recognizing how much our mind controls our action, controls our outcome is critical, because the UIC is about a mind change. It's changing the way we see governance, the way we see our role in society, the way we see the role of government in society. We're a learning organization. We're a teaching organization. We're not just about politics as usual. We want members who are intelligent. And if you weren't intelligent before you join us, we want you to become intelligent. We're not looking for blind, die-hearted persons. What we're looking for are persons who will allow their minds to expand, to fit into a bigger narrative about our existence as a people and the kind of governance we want. So personal responsibility goes hand in hand with individual liberty. You cannot have one without the other. We cannot have the liberty to do as we wish without the responsibility for the results of our actions. And so the UIC is very balanced. Yeah. We talk about individual liberty. We recognize how critical and important it is. It's a founding principle of the movement, but so is personal responsibility. So we're not trying to create what we have seen in the past, where you have politicians give us pie in the sky ideas and tell us that we can get prosperity without productivity. That's what was promised to you by the last government. They promised the Jamaican people a fake prosperity, a prosperity that was not built upon good governance, both by the government and good governance in our own lives. The UIC preaches prosperity that's built on productivity, as you will discover more when we get into day 4, day 5, and day 6 of the Kwanzaa principles. So while it is true that government can be a big help or a big problem in our lives, we must understand that we as individuals, we as families, we as communities must take responsibility for our own actions, for our own decisions, for our own choices. Failing to do so is a sure way of failing. Yeah. And so, yes, Jojo, let them continue to copy. They can copy all they want, but all they're doing is paving the way for a massive victory by the UIC. You know why we're going to succeed? All they can do is copy and create optics. The Prime Minister can announce many good things to try to take away the talking points. They're very good at PR. They're very good at marketing. But as good as they are at PR and marketing, notice that the people are finding them out. All that we have to do, we, the UIC, is raise the money we need to be able to communicate more directly with the people. The moment we have 1,000 donors giving us $25 a month, it's game over, because we're going to be able to effectively communicate at every level and get the Jamaican people fully engaged, and they will see, they already see through the other two. Them knows they're fake, them knows they're lie, but they don't yet know about the wonderful opportunity that you and I are creating for our people to move away from this system of trickery and fraud. And so, let them continue to play their game. As a matter of fact, let them do their worst while we do our best. So now I want to show you a video on this business of personal responsibility before we do some more discovery on the matter and come to a settled conclusion on how this is going to work for us. So let me see if I can cue that up for you now, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit more. Here we go. Can I find it? I think this is it. But before I do that, let me see if I can get this thing set up here properly. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I think this is it. Yes. Okay.
Personal responsibility. Whoa, who wants to hear about that? Well, you do, if you want to have any chance at health, wealth, and happiness. So what does it mean, personal responsibility? You probably already know, but just in case, it means holding yourself accountable for your words and actions, instead of blaming others or making constant excuses. It means taking responsibility for your own successes, but also, and this is even more important, your own failures. Your life boils down to this: conscious choices, habits, and random events. You can't control everything that happens to you. Accidents, sickness, bad luck, human malice, and natural disasters are all unfortunate realities of life. On the other hand, you also get to experience love, friendship, kindness, opportunity, and generosity. All the good stuff life has to offer. But bad things do happen, and sometimes there's nothing we can do about it. What we can control is how we react. It's a lot easier said than done, but people do it all the time. Who doesn't know someone who's been dealt a bad hand? For example, a debilitating disease, yet who manages to be happier than someone who is in perfect health. We all confront our own struggles, pain, personal tragedies, and ultimately, death. So while you're here, I recommend making the most of the opportunity. To do that, the very first thing you have to do is take responsibility for your life. Yet this simple and self-evident concept is widely rejected and even mocked. Why is that? It's because it strikes at the core of our ego, our image of ourselves. It's human nature to seek excuses. Telling people they're responsible for their bad decisions removes these comforting alibis. Blaming another individual, group, or plain bad luck is much more appealing. Furthermore, adopting such a victim mindset can act as a form of social currency, a way to court attention and sympathy, or even as a cudgel to wield against others. If you're out of shape, broke, unsuccessful, or unhappy, then it must be the fault of someone else, or even better, some nefarious system which doesn't even need to be defined. You just know that you're a victim of it. It's easy to see why people would want to reject the idea of personal responsibility. The warm glow of victimhood is very tempting. but the consequences of doing so inevitably lead to misery, anger, and ruin. Only when you recognize that your destiny is in your own hands can you make positive changes to your life, your health, career, relationships, self-esteem, happiness, and most important of all, your character. No one else can or will do it for you. As one recovering addict put it when asked, "When did you decide to become sober?" "The day I stopped blaming everybody else for my problems." To understand where you are now and to make better decisions in the future, it's also important to understand history. Wise people, and being wise has little to do with your age, learn from the past. But a word of caution. Preoccupation with the past to the point of obsession is destructive. The past is immutable. It can't be altered nor reversed. You have no control over the past, but you do have control over the present and the future. If you're driving a car whilst only looking in the rearview mirror, then you're going to crash. But if you keep your eyes on the road ahead, looking back only to orient yourself, then you are far more likely to reach your destination intact. We all start at different positions in life. We don't get to choose when or where or to whom we're born. We don't choose our genetics, our nationality, our sex, nor our ethnicity. Everyone has advantages and disadvantages that they can't take credit for, nor be blamed for. The only question that matters is, what do you do with what you have? It's trendy now for people to talk about privilege through a narrow lens, typically focused on skin color, gender, sexuality, and occasionally wealth. Privilege is considered a sin that must be decried and even shamed. I take a different view. I believe it's our responsibility to take advantage of whatever privileges we have in order to succeed and, ideally, provide such privileges for others. Everything else is just excuse-making. When you refuse to take responsibility for yourself, you are, whether you know it or not, giving it to somebody else, be it another person or a government. And that is disempowering. Personal responsibility is the ultimate freedom, and it's great to be free. I'm Zuby, host of the Real Talk with Zuby podcast, and author of Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody, for Prager University.
Wonderful. Isn't it nice to hear somebody who really wants to take personal responsibility for their own actions? We, as Jamaicans, as Africans all around the world, it's time for us to take full responsibility for our actions. It's time for us to take full responsibility for our successes and our failures. They said success has many parents and failures many orphans. I'm not one of those persons who is afraid to face up to my failures. In fact, if you know my life story, you know that I have suffered a number of failures. Like almost the vast majority of Jamaicans, I was born into a very, very poor home to a single mother. And one of the things I really admired about my mother was her resilience, her unwillingness to accept defeat. She was such a magnificent person who, any opportunity there is to work, to earn, to make a living, she would do it. She was not afraid to do anything. My mother was a crash program worker. So under the Mike and Manley crash program, she was one of the persons who swept the streets, cared for the park. There's a park out at Marvelly at Malines Road and Washington Boulevard. You had two sides, a football field on one side and a park on the other side. And that was one of the areas that she was responsible for cleaning. And I remember, going out there as a young boy and watching her work. I used to go to a school just down the road deeper into Marvelly, a school, Miss Johnson Basic School. And so I would, interact with her and other workers in the process. She would do that work, and then on the weekends she would go and wash people's dirty clothes, normally some more affluent people's homes that she worked in. And what amazed me about my mother was the fact that she would do 2 days work in one day. That's amazing. How do you do day's work in one day. A day's work is where you go to somebody's house and do a day's work. So you're working for the day. And my mother, in order to feed her 3 children without a father supporting the process, she went to one house over here and she washed big pan of clothes, the big metal pans, and she washed those clothes and she hung them up on the line for them to dry. And then she goes over to the neighbor next door to the customer she's working for, and she washed their clothes and put it on the line. Whole heap of clothes in it. You're talking mother, father, and 2 or 3 children, and pin them out on the line. And then while that's drying, she goes over here and she take these clothes off and iron. So she ironed the husband's clothes and the wife's clothes and the children's clothes for school and work, have them all done. And by the time she finished ironing these, she goes to the other house, takes off the clothes and do the same thing, fold them properly, put them away properly. And it was just amazing to watch this woman work. And after she has done that and she got home, and we lived in this one 12 by 12 box house, room rather. And then she goes home, and all night, she is Friday, Saturday night, she's cooking sprat and making something called blue draws and pudding and ginger beer. And then Sunday morning now for the church folks, she has that ready to sell. And then Monday morning, she has gone back to work, wherever she's working, different places, factory, whatever, crash program, whatever. And she works 7 days a week. This lady took full responsibility for taking care of her family. It was just amazing to watch her work. And she still found time to engage in politics. I don't know how she did it. She still found time because she believed in the ideals that were espoused by Michael Manley and wanting to see a better Jamaica. And she went out canvassing. She went and planned campaigns with, D.K. Duncan, Carlisle Dunkley, Portia Simpson Miller, all those people. And she's planning and actively working to get her party elected. And I observed my mother in all of this. And she made sure that we had shoes for school, bag for school, uniform for school. She couldn't always find lunch money to give us. She gave us what little she had. Couldn't always find the bus fare, but gave us what she had. But that woman did everything possible to see to it that her 3 children would not amount to the worst. Now, with all of that, all of us still failed the common entrance. My brother failed, who is the older one, twice. My sister failed twice. I failed twice. It was not looking good at all. But in all of this, I now had to take responsibility for my actions. I could have decided that my mother was poor, we lived under poor circumstances, and so there's nothing I can do. I just have to be a failure because, it's too hard. No, I decided that I'm going to do my best in the limited circumstances. And by the time I finished high school, I had 13 subjects and a full scholarship to go to UTech to study engineering. Now, I could have given up. My mother could have given up. The funny thing about it, my brother and sisters, my sister who also failed like me, they also did not give up. My brother became an air condition technician and a master plumber. My sister became a radiologist and quite good in her field of nursing, or what they call them, a different name, I forgot the name, but where you're helping with geriatric patients and stuff and dealing with the, what do you call it now, the stuff where you look at x-rays and figure out what's going on and stuff like that. Now, but all of us came out of a very, very, bad situation and stuff like that. My mother eventually built a small house with 3 bedrooms, with coming out of all of that poverty. So the point I'm making is, we don't want a Jamaica. We don't want a Jamaica. Sorry, Donovan is Donovan is saying blue jaws, and he's laughing. Yes, that's what it was. And they put it in the banana leaf, and I think they made it with there's cornmeal and stuff in there. But in all of that poverty, man, all of that poverty there, her 3 children have made her proud. Now she ended up having a 4th child later on. She got married. So she finally got married, met somebody that loved her and cared for her, and they got married. And in her older age, she had a 4th child who was born with some medical difficulties. But that 4th child, with her medical difficulties, still managed to make it to university and graduate with a degree in political science. I'm telling you all of this to say this: we should not give up, even if our government, even if our economy, even if our society is failing us. No matter what the situation is, we should not give up. And that brings me to the point now where I see many Jamaicans, many of us, deciding that we have no time for politics. We have no time to engage in rescuing our country because we are so poor. We're too poor to donate to the UIC. We're too poor to volunteer. We're too poor to get involved. Yes, we want the change. We'll pray for you. We'll hope. We'll wish that everything works out, and we'll vote for you. If you do all of the work and make it on the ballot and everything is there, we will come out and vote. But we're not prepared to do anything else. That's the general attitude of many. But my poor single mother showed me that you can be very poor and very active in the life and development of your country the same way. You can have 3 children without a father to support you, and you can still be very active in volunteering, even if you don't have no money. I remember distinctly one Sunday afternoon, after she finished doing her sales and stuff, in our little one room, this is a little one room, 12 by 12. There was a gray dining room table pushed up to one side under one of the windows. And in that one little room that we all slept in, the 4 of us slept in head to toe every night on that one bed. In that one room, we had Carlisle Dunkley, D.K. Duncan, and U Small in that one room, sitting down, discussing politics with this single mother who works 7 days a week to feed our picnic them. And they're talking politics with her, how they're going to win a particular constituency. My mother, poor as she is, and here she is sitting with these big people. I'm sure they don't remember her. I'm sure they've moved on with their lives, and some have passed away now and all of that. And she remained in her poverty. And even though she gives Michael Manley a lot of credit, because Michael Manley, in her opinion, gave her a house. The truth is, he never gave her a house. What he did, what his party did, was to give her or approve her to get a piece of land in Seaview Gardens, a piece of those little housing lot. So she got that one little housing lot with one wall completed, just a wall, and a little housing lot. And that's what she got. And she was so grateful for this. And I said to her, Mommy, why are you so grateful to the PNP for this? You want a country where you don't get nothing through politics. You personally. The government is supposed to work and create an environment where all of us, whether we're PNP or JLP or UIC or nothing, but all of us must have the ability, right? Must have the opportunity to be able to secure for ourselves, without any political connection, a space in which to live decently. It should not be because of your political affiliation or connection. And I tried to explain that to her. She said, yeah, it's true, but I love Manley nonetheless because of him give me this. You understand? But I want to break us out of that. You don't want nothing because of political connection. What you want is a system of governance that works to give all Jamaicans equal opportunity to make something of themselves, to get a good education, to have good nutrition, to have a decent health care, to have a decent home, to be able to find a decent job or create an effective company that can hire other people as well, and grow and achieve your full potential. Yeah. But the point I really want us to get from this story about my mother is that she did what all of us must do today in the UIC. All of us, whether you are rich or poor or middle class, whether you are low income, middle income, or high income, you have a personal responsibility to say, I need to do something to help this movement extricate Jamaica from 78 years of bad governance. I need to play my part. Now, if you don't have money, what my mother did, the level, I'm sure she did, by the way, she used to pay her dues. There was dues in her, she was a part of the, let me tell you about my mother some more. My mother, remember, she working 7 days a week, so I don't know how she does this, how she did this. My mother taught Jamal over by St. Mary's Church. So if you go on the corner of Malines Road and Washington Boulevard, you'll see St. Mary's Church on the southwest corner, St. Mary's Church. I used to also be a scout over there. Bolivar Blake was my scout master. So I was a scout at this about the same time or a little bit after she was teaching at Jamal. When I come home from school sometime, I would go over there and sit in the back of the class when she's teaching. Remember, my mother, who only had a grade 9 or 10 education, and so she was teaching the students, the adults, how to read and write. Now, isn't that somebody we should be very proud of? She only had a 9th or 10th grade education, and here she was volunteering her time to teach Jamal, to help other adults who couldn't read, who were less fortunate than her, less privileged than her, to borrow that phrase. And she was giving of her time to help her fellow men and women. That's where I get it from, I think her spirit is what has kind of, really sink in to me. While she's doing that, my father, by the way, was far more affluent. Now, to be fair, I mean, my father and I, we don't have a good relationship, right? We don't get along very well. But I must still give him his dues. My father, his father died when he was about 12 years old. If I remember correctly, he has 4 brothers and 1 sister. And I believe the sister is maybe the second to last or so. So there are about 6 of them, if my memory serves me right. So my father, his father died when he was 12 years old. His father was a construction or developer, housing developer. So he built houses for people, and quite a smart guy, I was told. Very productive, very entrepreneurial. But he died, he fell off a building. And passed away when my father was 12. Now his mother, my grandmother, she was a housewife and a very good one too. Loved her family, cared for her husband, but she was never out there in the work world. So you know how traumatic it must have been when her husband died, and here she was with 6 children. Fortunately, they had a house, a relatively small house up in Lloydersville, so I hail from Lloydersville as well. And so there, they in this community, she had 6 children, no husband, not much experience working anywhere. And so the children were kind of scattered, they had to go live with different people. And my grandmother got a job as a helper in Canada. And so she went to Canada and had to leave her children. But my father, he found himself, he actually ran away from where he was sent, and he made his way to Kingston. And in Kingston, he sent himself to school. So he found a way to work and went to St. Andrew Technical High School, where he learned electrical installation, and went on to get his master electrician license. Remember, no family now, no mother, no father. He's bouncing around in Kingston and making something of himself, a self-made person, and grew into being quite a successful businessman in his own right. Buying a nice home, got married to a lovely lady, my stepmother. They had a lovely family, and really made something of himself. But he was not so much involved in civic responsibilities. So he was more affluent than my mother by far, pulled himself up by the bootstraps. So he took personal responsibilities for himself and made himself something. But unlike my mother, he never really got involved in much civic responsibility, civic duty. But my mother, who is much poorer than him, not poorer than him, she was poor, he was not poor anymore. He came up from poverty, built himself up, and she was, crippled by poverty. But in her poverty, she found time. She found time to help to build her country. And for that, I am eternally grateful, because she was doing the best she could. And we now must do the same. We must do the same. Clive Morrison says, I agree. I'm in Jamaica visiting, taking responsibility to clean up land, to farm. I want to come home. The mindset of Jamaicans here have to wake up. We need to know, yes, we have to become more engaged, my friends, in solving the problem that we're faced with. And so one way to do that is to make sure that we join the movement, volunteer in the movement, donate to the movement, and help to spread the movement far and wide. Yeah? And I'm sure we can do this. I know we can do this. I want you to listen now to a gentleman. His name is Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is one of the most outstanding economists the world has ever seen. He and Walter Williams are two of the most outstanding economists in the world. Some of you might be familiar with Milton Friedman. So Milton Friedman is a white American who is an outstanding economist, and these two gentlemen are two black Americans who are outstanding economists. I study a lot of their work because they are very honest, very practical, very cause to effect analytical. And so when you study what they have to say about economics and how they explain a lot of the economics, you can learn a lot from them. And so, yes, Booker T. Washington is also great. Jojo, absolutely. He went through tremendous challenges and made something of himself. Marcus Garvey, phenomenal. When you look at Marcus Garvey's history and his achievements, I believe to this day, Marcus Garvey is the most remarkable human being this world has ever seen. And just to imagine that he's Jamaican, born right here in Jamaica in the parish of St. Anne. So we have enough history, enough examples for us to do better than we have done. So we have to come out of our shell now. We have to come out of our hiding places. We have to get engaged again, get active again in saying we are going to take charge of our destiny, not just individually, but also collectively. But you cannot have a strong collective without strong individuals. And so we as individuals have to make it our mission that we are going to now engage in rescuing the country. Don't just sit back and wait for Joseph Patterson to go and do it, or wait for the UIC, because the UIC is you and me. The UIC is you and me. The UIC is not some nebulous organization somewhere. It's us. We're not funded by the US. We're not funded by USAID. We're not funded by the EU. You know, we have some organizations in Jamaica, you know, that are telling us all kind of stuff, even some human rights one, where they're funded by a foreign organization. So you can't even trust them. They might tell you a few things here that sound good, but you can't trust them because they're not working for you and me. They're working for their funders. You check it out. Whatever their nice names are, whatever they call themselves, they're working for agents. They're, in effect, they're agents of the colonial powers. So you have some of them come here and plant in our country various ideas that they want to plant. They're being paid to do this. So don't trust them. Remember, I warned you. Many of our laws that we have on the books are not our laws. Our politicians never sat down and think them up. They are sponsored by foreign powers who come here and, you know, organize nice meetings in hotels and give them food and give them pretty PowerPoints and nice talk and whole heap of nice words and get them to little by little write laws into our books that are meant to cripple us, but they sound good. Remember, in one of my previous lectures, I told you not to get carried away by the intentions of a policy, but by the effect of the policy. Focus on the impact, the effect. So for example, NHT, nice sounding policy, but what is the effect of the policy? Yeah, the recent laws that is supposed to prevent us from having loan sharks lending us money at exorbitant rates and whatever. The policy sounds good, law sounds good, but the effect of the law is really to make sure that they create a monopoly on the business of lending so that they can corner you and control you, and them must be the only one to be able to lend to you and charge you the exorbitant interest rates. Okay, so I'm going to now ask you to listen to this gentleman, Thomas Sowell, who is a famous economist. He passed away recently. Very matter of fact, when you listen to him, you have to, you know, listen with understanding and not be put off by his stray talk. So he doesn't polish anything up. He just tells you as it is, and you need to be mature enough to be able to digest what he's saying to you and really look to the meat of it. And if you get the meat of it, it will enlighten you and give you a greater perspective on what's happening, you know, in our world and how various policies that you see affects us all. So let me see if I can get that for you now. Here we go. So this is Mr. Thomas Sowell. Listen to him carefully on the topic of personal responsibility.
Many of the issues of our times are hard to understand without understanding the vision of the world that they are part of. Whether the particular issue is education, economics, or medical care, the preferred explanation tends to be an external explanation, that is, something outside the control of the individuals directly involved. Education is usually discussed in terms of the money spent on it, the teaching methods used, class sizes, or the way the whole system is organized. Students are discussed largely as passive recipients of good or bad education. But education is not something that can be given to anybody. It is something that students either acquire or fail to acquire. Personal responsibility may be ignored or downplayed in this non-judgmental age, but it remains a major factor nevertheless. After many students go through a dozen years in the public schools at a total cost of $100,000 or more per student, and emerge semi-literate and with little understanding of the society in which they live, much less the larger world and its history, most discussions of what is wrong leave out the fact that many such students may have chosen to use school as a place to fool around, act up, organize gangs, or even peddle drugs. The great escape of our times is escape from personal responsibility for the consequences of one's own behavior. Differences in infant mortality rates provoke pious editorials on a need for more prenatal care to be provided by the government for those unable to afford it. In other words, the explanation is automatically assumed to be external to the mothers involved, and the solution is assumed to be something that we can do for them. While it is true that black mothers get less prenatal care than white mothers and have higher infant mortality rates, it is also true that women of Mexican ancestry also get less prenatal care than white women and yet have lower infant mortality rates. But once people with the prevailing social vision see the first set of facts, they seldom look for any other facts that might go against the explanation that fits their vision of the world. No small part of the current confusion between health care and medical care comes from failing to recognize that Americans can have the best medical care in the world without having the best health, because so many people choose to live in ways that shorten their lives. There can be grave practical consequences of a dogmatic insistence on external explanations that allow individuals to escape personal responsibility. Americans can end up ruining the best medical care in the world in the vain hope that a government takeover will give us better health. Economic issues are approached in the same way. People with low incomes are seen as a problem for other people to solve. Studies which follow the same individuals over time show that the vast majority of working people who are in the bottom 20% of income earners at a given time end up rising out of that bracket. Many are simply beginners who get beginners' wages, but whose pay as they acquire more skills and experience. Yet there is a small minority of workers who do not rise, and a large number of people who seldom work and who, surprise, have low incomes as a result. Seldom is there any thought that people who choose to waste years of their own time and the taxpayers' money in school need to change their own behavior or to visibly suffer the consequences so that their fate can be a warning to others coming after them not to make the same mistake. It is not just the non-judgmental ideology of the intelligentsia, but also the self-interest of politicians that leads to so much downplaying of personal responsibility in favor of external explanations and external programs to solve the problem. On these and other issues, government programs are far less likely to solve the country's problems than to solve the politicians' problem of getting the votes of those who think the answer to every problem is for the government to do something.
Okay, so the real thrust of what Thomas Sowell was saying is that we have to be careful what we lay at the feet of government versus what we lay at our own feet. I want to give you an example of this. So because I failed common entrance twice and subsequently failed the technical entrance, I went to Spanish Town Secondary, which was a school, they called them new secondary school back in the days. And they were not really high school fully. They were, a substandard version of high school. And so that's where I found myself in when I finished primary school and a small stint at two all-age schools, Marvelly all-age for a little bit, and then Gregory Park all-age for a little bit. And, I wasn't doing quite well academically. And so I ended up at Spanish Town Secondary on the recommendation of my stepmother, given my obvious lack of performance. And so there at Spanish Town Secondary, I made a conscious decision that I was going to be a better person. I was going to figure out what the problem was and solve this academic problem that I had. Now, I was doing quite well at trying to recover, but I wasn't doing so well in math. So math was a big problem, between grade 8 and grade 9. but I was trying hard. Yeah. So I was doing very well in language and social studies, in my electrical class, yeah, science class and so on. But I was struggling in math compared to the others more. And so I decided that needed to be fixed. And so the summer after grade 9, the summer that followed after grade 9, I decided that I was going to fix this math problem once and for all. And I had two stepsisters, and they were very bright, very, very bright, those two young ladies. One of them went to Queens High School and the other one went to Holy Childhood. They passed on their first attempts, common entrance. They got government scholarship, very bright girls. And, I felt really bad. And my father was so disappointed in me because I was done. So didn't even know my times tables. When you live with a single mother of 3 who, herself isn't highly educated and didn't have the time, I guess, to help me much, I was pretty behind. And so when I saw how well my stepsisters were doing and so on, I decided I needed to fix this problem. That's me now, taking personal responsibility. I could blame my mother for not being able to do what a mother should do to make sure you're okay academically. I could blame her for not being able to pay for private lessons, which was a big thing back in those days, in the 70s into the 80s. Going private lesson, getting private lesson was a big deal if you're going to do well. And I have never been to a private lesson in my entire life. Never. So, what am I going to do here? When I ran away at age 11, 12 to go live with my father now, and I'm at his house and seeing, my stepmother was the best. She was partially at home and partially working out the home, but she was on top of the academic development of her children. So she would, every day they had to come home and do their homework, and she would check their homework and she would follow up. They had to do, so she was very meticulous with her children on their educational development. I wasn't her son, so I was bit in the middle. So she had to be careful, I guess, what she did with me. And so I was there in all of this, seeing what's going on. So I had to make a choice. What am I going to do? So I decided I want to be brighter. I want to be smarter. And so the summer of grade 9, the summer after grade 9, I went into my stepsister's room, and I went into, they have a closet in there, and at the top of the closet, a whole lot of old books that they used from, first form and whatever was in there. And I took out all of their old math books and I packaged them, and I went up into the Julie mango tree, which was kind of hanging over the house top a little bit. And I went up in there and I did over all of their work. I did the work that they did in school, the math books, I went over everything. Basic maths. I'd be ashamed. I would be, for anybody to see me doing those baby maths. I went over, did the decimals again, the number line again, the fraction, again, basic fractions, doing all the basic math from baby stages, hiding and doing it. Nobody knows see me. I hide and do all of these things. And would you believe, remember, grade 9, my highest grade in math, if I did well, it would be 50%. And I very rarely would ever have gotten 50% on a math test. Remember, now I'm an accountant today, and I got distinction in math in high school in the end. But back then, I'm getting like 30%, 40% if I'm lucky. And so I did all these basic things on my own, no teacher. This is me making my own decision to do this. And when I went to school in grade 10, I went from near the bottom of the class in math to right at the top over one summer from bottom to top of the class. So I was now in competition with the best people like Patrick Jones and Peter Rumbler, who were top, right? I was now on par with those guys, and we're competing. So much so that I would then become the captain of the quiz team, and we won our first school challenge quiz in 1980. What was it? 87, I believe. Yeah, and we were in grade 10. So here I was at grade 10, leading the new secondary school quiz team. And all of us on the team were grade 10, except for one girl named Allison McKenzie, who was grade 9, which was amazing because she was very bright. And we were at the lower end of the school. We weren't yet senior students, but we beat the seniors in the inter competition inside the school, and therefore we could represent the school outside. And we won every single match. We didn't lose a single match across the island. We went school after school, and we won all of our quiz competitions. But remember, I'm coming from the bottom of the class. And in one summer, taking my own personal initiative, no tutor, no private lesson, nobody, just me and some old books. And some of the books had the answers in the back, so you could then check to see if you got it right. And my philosophy in math is, if I cannot explain every step of the problem, then I don't understand it. So I must be able to explain every step, how you move from here to here to here to here to here to here to here. And so that's why I became a master mathematician in my own right in school. I really mastered. I loved learning first principles. I discovered books on the history of mathematics and the first principle, all the different principles. How did we get to these formulas? Where did they come from? I wanted to understand every formula inside out, the quadratic equation, how it worked. Why did we come to that? Euclidean geometry. How did we get to that? Calculus. And so with all of that, I'm saying this to say that when you take personal responsibility for something and not blame I could blame the school system. I could blame, my primary school teacher failed, or my basic school teacher failed, or my mother failed, or whatever. But no, I took responsibility for my learning. And regardless of the problems, I was able to use my own initiative and intellect to learn and master something and move from the bottom and to the top, to the point where eventually I'm a CPA, I am a director in government dealing with $2 billion Canadian dollars in budget. So we can do this, folks. We can transform Jamaica. We can do what others have failed to do for 78 years. I know we can, but each of you, every one of you, must take responsibility for helping to make that happen. Each of you must take responsibility for that. And if we do, as a matter of fact, all we need is 1,000 of us. 1,000 of us. Remember the story of Gideon? When Gideon went with an army to go fight another army. It's in the Bible. And the story tells us that God tell him to put the army through a series of tests. One of them was if they went down to the river and they drink like a dog, lapping up the water with their head down, not paying attention to the surroundings, then we must send them home. And only those who were attentive, those were to remain. So a small contingent of us, 1,000 of us. Give me 1,000 of us donating $25 equivalent a month, or whatever, $10, $15, $20, whatever it is, but average 25. 1,000 of us doing that, and we can take Jamaica out of the hands of the PSOJ oligarchy, out of the hands of the colonial powers, out of the hands of their two colonial parties. We can do it. We can do it. Let us not be distracted by all the noise that is out there. There are lots of noise. They love when we jump from one news item to the next. I'm not going to do it. I am focused on your education and my education. Let us educate ourselves about the system. Let us teach our fellow Jamaicans about the system. Let us help them to understand why we need to become a non-partisan constitutional republic, why we cannot afford to be a fake republic like Barbados, like Trinidad, like Guyana, or even the United States of America, why we cannot afford to be the kind of republic that China is, why we need to be a real republic that fully protects individual liberty, that creates one Jamaica, united, strong, and free. And every one of those words are important. United around good governance. Strong because we have a truly free and fair market economy that does not trample upon small businesses, but uplift the small man. A bottom-up economy, a grassroots economy. You cannot be stronger than if you build an economy that is from the bottom up. So we're going to have one Jamaica, united, strong, and free. Because if you have a free country, if you free the people of Jamaica, you will unleash more Usain Bolts, more Bob Marleys. And you know what? You're going to unleash talents that we have not yet seen. I believe there's boundless talent here to be great inventors, innovators, and creators. But the system that we have in place, the system keeps us down. The system robs us of our full potential. I know that if I never left Jamaica, I would have done well here. But leaving Jamaica allowed me to do well faster. And we have to change that. We have to create a Jamaica where you don't have to leave here to do well. And you don't have to leave here to do well faster. We have to create that Jamaica. A Jamaica which is so designed that each of us have equal opportunity to do our very best no matter what. A Jamaica where if you miss one step, you still have the opportunity to regain that step and move up. One of the things I liked about countries like Canada is they have something called lifelong learning, where it's okay to learn anything at any age. And the system is designed to accommodate you to do that. So you can play catch up quickly. So a person who failed at the high school level can play catch up quickly in their adult years. And the system is designed to facilitate that. It encourages that. It makes it easy for you to do that. And we have to do the same thing here in Jamaica. We have to make it very easy for anybody to continue to learn, to have access to information, access to learning. Now, mind you, it's there, Right now, we are the most fortunate set of people in the history of mankind. We have never had it easier to access information than we do now. We have so much information now that we have an overflow of that information. And the problem now is being able to decipher the information, being able to pick sense out of nonsense, being able to dissect and put together your own. Right now, you don't have to go to university anymore if you don't want to. You can learn just about anything, unless you want to do one of the professions which are regulated. But let's take, for example, if you wanted to build a solution like Twitter or Uber or Amazon, you can be a person who flunked out completely out of high school, and still be able to create something as magnificent and powerful as any of those applications. If you have the drive and determination, if I wish that what we have now, we had when I was 15 or 16, because I'd be light years ahead right now. I was very fortunate. I'll tell you another story. I love to tell stories, because I think stories help you to learn better. When I went to stats, so after I finished Spanish Town Secondary, and I passed a few subjects there, and I was head boy there and all of that, and I finished Spanish Town Secondary. I was very fortunate to get a scholarship to go to St. Andrew Technical High School. Now, when I went to St. Andrew Technical High School, because I passed math, physics, well, those two in particular, I passed math and physics early. So I was ahead of the other students on math and physics. I had the opportunity to use the computer lab. So they were just putting in this new computer lab. It had not yet been fully integrated across the school. And I think the students who had somewhat of access to it would have been those in the commerce section. I was in the engineer section. So I went to stats to do electronics. And then when I transferred from the trade side to the technical side, I was in the engineering program. So where mechanical engineering was the primary subject area. So I was very fortunate because at Spanish Town Secondary, I did electrical. I got a distinction, straight A's in electrical technology and electrical installation. And then I went to stats and was doing electronics. So I got that part as well. Then I transferred over to technical and was doing mechanical technology. So I've had a really good rounding of engineering technology stuff going on, which is really good for later on. Now, the point I was trying to make though is that because I had passed physics and math ahead of the other students, I was now able to go to the computer lab, but there's no computer lab teacher. They just kind of send you there. Like I went with another friend of mine, Peter Rumpel, a brilliant fellow. Him and I used to work together. He has passed away now. A really brilliant guy. Much smarter than me, actually. Like he did A-level math on his own ahead of me and passed A-level math. We kind of did it together, actually, but he passed ahead of me. Brilliant fellow. But we went, they gave us the lab to ourselves. We just went into the lab by ourselves. Now, if you give that to today's young people, many of them, they would just play computer games. Now, on the computer, there were games like solitaire and stuff, which we kind of looked at. But very quickly, I narrowed my focus on some key programs, which nobody else were doing at the time. None of the other kids, nobody that I knew of was doing any of it. I was doing Lotus, which is the precursor to Excel. And so I was learning Lotus. That's the precursor to what we know as Excel today. So I was learning Lotus, learning how to write formulas, how to write macros, how to do VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs, all these wonderful things on my own. No teacher, just me and Peter. They're playing around and building tables, building formulas, doing all that kind of stuff. I also did, there was Corel Draw, so I was learning some graphics, Harvard graphics on there as well. There was WordPerfect, I believe it was called, the equivalent of Microsoft Word today. And so we're just doing this in the lab, free, no teacher, no nothing. Little did I know that was going to make me a cutting edge employee later on. Because when I finished UTech now and was entering into the world of work, by the way, when I was at UTech, because of that prior experience, on my own without any teachers, when I went to UTech now, I was a straight A student in computer systems and programming, just because of that. So remember, no teacher here. This is personal responsibility here. Me just choosing how I'm going to spend my time. What am I going to do with the privileges that I got? And remember, those privileges came because of prior choices. If I had not decided to master mathematics on my own, if I had not therefore passed math ahead of the other students and passed physics ahead of the other students, I would not have the privilege of being left alone in the computer lab. And while being there, if I had not made the choice to, instead of playing games every day, to learn some of the productivity tools on the program, the Lotus, thank you very much. I'm getting the signal here. I have to wrap up in 9 minutes. Thank you, Naika. You're the best. So, I had to learn. So I learned these productivity tools, which then translate into, when I went into the world of work now, I am able to do things which many of those who were in my age group, my peers, while they were fresh out of college and were excited, they didn't have some of those productivity skills. So you find that I was able to grow very quickly through the ranks. I remember I was 35 years old when I was director of finance, financial reporting and controls in the government. Normally, the age group in that category is between 50 and 55 years old. So the point I'm trying to make is, my friends, regardless of where you start out in life, regardless of your condition in life, regardless of the handicaps and the challenges that you face, you can make a way and make something of yourself. It doesn't have to be the same story as mine or my mother. Now, my mother's story was very different from mine. She never achieved grand things in the academic sphere or in the professional world. But my God, look what she did with 3 children as a single mother. Look what she did in terms of juggling and making all of it work, eventually building our little house out of our little bit of money with 3-bedroom and stuff. Yes, it was Seaview Gardens, a tough area, but the bottom line is she never gave up. And while doing all of that, she contributed to our national development by teaching in Jamal. She was a part of the women's movement in the PNP. She has helped a number of candidates win their seats, and she believed in it. It was what she thought was best and good for Jamaica at the time. Unfortunately, she was duped. She was tricked. Okay? But she did her best. She made a valiant attempt to help us to have a better Jamaica. And now we must build on what she has done. And she has passed on to me the genes, the desire, the drive to work towards a better Jamaica, to finish the work that she started, to move it to the next level, the level that corrects many of the errors that she may have pushed but not realizing. And now she has a son who can help because of the benefits she gave to me, because she stood behind me, because she helped me to acquire an education, and she helped me to pass the worst, as they say. And now I can carry on the torch, and you can carry on the torch. You have your own story. I'm sure all of you listening here, you have your own story similar to mine, in different ways or maybe quite paralleling mine. And now we can join hands together and make the determined effort to carry Jamaica to the next level, so we can have one Jamaica, united, strong, and free. A Jamaica where we respect and protect individual liberty, and where we all have and take personal responsibility for the part we must play in building this grand, new, non-partisan, constitutional republic of Jamaica. A Jamaica where every child receives the nutrition, the education, the healthcare, and housing that they need to succeed. A Jamaica where the property that was stolen from our ancestors is returned to us, so every Jamaican becomes a property owner, and no more land is government land. It is all our land, properly and effectively transferred to our ownership, so every single family has a decent home. Every single born Jamaican has a share in the productive use of the land. And therefore, the land of Jamaica, by virtue of organic farming and other industries, become the oil for our people that gives us a dividend in our hands for the proper and profitable use of our land. No more bauxite mining to destroy our land, our water, our air, and our health. But organic farming with good, nutritious, fertile land maintained throughout eternity for the benefit of our posterity. A Jamaica that is clean from east to west and north to south, that is beautifully manicured and maintained with the quality of a landscape that you see in a resort. A Jamaica which smells, feels, and look like a tourist resort, whether you're in Tivoli Gardens or in Alton Court in Annabelle, whether you're in Betheltown in Westmoreland or you're in Braes River in St. Elizabeth, whether you're in Raytown in downtown Kingston or you're in Montego Bay, St. James, whether you're in Ocho-Rios in St. Anne or you're in Maypen in Clarendon, whether you're in Portland or St. Mary, it doesn't matter. The entire Jamaica become one all-inclusive resort for the people of Jamaica, and by extension, we can welcome even more visitors to come to our homes, to come to our communities, share in the love and the food and the spirit of a truly vivacious Jamaica, a Jamaica where we truly engage in all of our cultural aspirations and our cultural activities that shows the true Jamaica to those who come to our shores. A Jamaica where every child knows that if they work hard and apply themselves in school, they will have a decent job right here. One that will allow them to have a decent home and enjoy a decent lifestyle with their family. A Jamaica where we're no longer divided by party, class, color, or any other form of manufactured division. A Jamaica where we're truly one. It doesn't mean we're all going to be equal economically, because that will be up to each of us, how hard we're willing to work and how smart we're willing to work. But none of us will be denied the opportunity to do well. We'll have a Jamaica where everyone can live, earn, and retire with dignity, in liberty, and in their own country. A Jamaica where we open our arms wide to all Jamaicans around the world, that you may vote from wherever you are, that you may run for office with any citizenship you previously have, that you may bring back to this country all of your assets duty-free, because we're one Jamaica and we know that we're stronger together. That is what we're going to create. But we can only do that if each of us take personal responsibility to help the UIC rescue Jamaica from those who have robbed us for 78 years in self-governance and fake independence, on top of the previous 400 years that the colonial powers robbed us. The time has come for us to take back our country and to take it back now. I am doing my part. I am taking personal responsibility. I am putting my life and my family and my finances on the line. And all I ask is for 1,000 of you to put $25 on the line and watch us do the rest. We can do it. We must do it. Happy Kwanzaa until tomorrow, when we go to day 4. We're going to talk about a free and fair market economy. We're going to talk on day 5 about productivity. We're going to talk on day 6 about creativity. We're going to talk on day 7 about honesty. Now, on day 6 is a special day. I'm not going to be here on a live with you on day 6 because we're going to have a seminar on day 6. Day 6 is a special seminar. It's going to be a paid seminar. It's about how to invest in this volatile economy that we have, how you can manage your finances in an optimal way to navigate the inflation and all the other challenges, how you can make something out of nothing. This seminar is focused on what we call investing in yourself. This is what it looks like. And so on December 31st at 6:30 p.m., I'm going to be at the Braze River Shiloh Apostolic Church in Grossmont. It will be live for those who have paid. It's $25 if you pay in advance, $30 US if you pay on the day. Locally here in Jamaica, it's $2,500 if you pay in advance and $3,000 if you pay on the day. If you're here in Jamaica, refreshments will be provided. I'm going to be talking about local and overseas opportunities, which will explain to you how you can get your products out into the export market. Even if you're living overseas, how can you sell in other jurisdictions effectively? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about exporting your products and services globally. We're going to talk about working for money. There's a really, really important distinction here, why you should not work for money and how to make money work for you. That's an important topic you can't afford to miss. I know we have been taught to work for money all of our lives. I'm going to show you how to understand this phrase and apply it in your daily lives and stop working for money and start letting money actually work for you. I'm going to talk about education, healthcare, and retirement so you can plan properly for your transition into retirement if you're not there as yet. If you're there, I'm going to talk about how you can protect your limited assets and grow it in a way that will allow you to live out the rest of your years in a little bit more of a financial secure way. I'm going to explain accounting and economics in ways that makes it very simple for you. These are two things you need to know if you're going to be an effective investor. I'm also going to talk about the balancing act of being healthy and happy within a wealthy environment. How do you create wealth and be healthy and happy at the same time? And I'm finally going to make investing really, really very easy for you. So hopefully you'll be able to attend. If you can't attend, that's a part of life. We'll have another one sometime. But I implore you, if you want to get a handle on managing your finances in a way that works, you can't afford to miss this seminar. It's December 31st, 6:30 p.m. Jamaica time. Thank you very much. Please remember to rate this. Give me 100 out of 100. 100% if it's good. If not, give me a 0 or somewhere in between. Please put your comments after I close the session so that you're registering on the live and can push up our ratings in YouTube. Thanks again. Remember, one Jamaica, stronger together. Have a good night until tomorrow.